This is where we celebrate the work being done to create more, bigger, better and joined up wildlife and ecological networks to cope with the challenge of climate change and other 21st century pressures. The principles that guide these ambitious restorations were set out by Sir John Lawton nearly 10 years ago in the Lawton Review. Sir John emphasised that Britain's wildlife sites need to be more interconnected and that their rich diversity underpinned our very own survival. The MPA recognises that with wildlife declining globally, modern development and intensive agriculture, isolated reserves aren't enough to protect and preserve our ecology. We need big ideas and large-scale action across whole landscapes. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change recently reported on the urgency for the world to create environmentally sensitive landscapes to combat global warming. Better use of land can contribute to tackling climate change. Land is a critical resource and carbon sink, and sustainable management of Britain's land will make a difference. This year's landscape scale category showcases world-class, large-scale restoration projects that are protecting and improving our precious wildlife and ecosystems. They're creating new ecological corridors, stepping stones and buffer zones that preserve our biodiversity. Our first stop is Cibeles Headen and Shaw China Clay Quarries near Plymouth in Devon. The site sits on the edge of the internationally important Dartmoor National Park. The restoration mirrors the natural landscape with lakes, mires, flushes and ponds. Purple moorgrass and rush pastures are interlaced with lowland dry acid grassland.
What we're trying to do is extend the national park habitat style throughout the quarry to enable a wildlife corridor to be created for the larger animals, for the smaller invertebrates to expand their habitat population and populations so that they can then become more secure, because obviously with the loss of habitat that is happening everywhere and the loss of invertebrates, trying to expand these habitats where they are naturally occurring and give them the space to expand their own populations is vitally important.
The restoration team has created individual habitats and wildlife corridors which link up with the surrounding area. This is attracting a variety of species, enriching the ecology. In time, it's hoped that this natural larder will attract predators and encourage even more species. Fairy shrimps and damselflies, like the small red, large red and the scarce blue-tailed, are already thriving, along with the common hawker and keeled skimmer dragonflies. Plants, including the marsh club moss and the carnivorous sundew, are just some of the priority species flourishing on this site. 2 areas are already open to the public, and there are plans to encourage students of all ages to join educational visits to study the rare and precious species here. The Lyd Sand and Gravel Quarry in Kent has been restored by Brett Aggregates. They've added to the biodiversity of an area already designated as a Ramsar site, a European Special Protection Area and a site of special scientific interest. This is an internationally important area for coastal ecology and geomorphology. The quarry has been a feature of the landscape for half a century and is now included in the SSSI and has added to the footprint of this key British habitat. The wetland restoration is recognised for attracting some of Britain's iconic native and visiting birds: the Bewick swan, avocet, golden plover, hen harrier and marsh harrier. On the arable field margins and floodplain grazing marsh, the famous giant hares of Kent bound through the landscape.
It's amazing the amount of birds that's attracted to this area, and we've had a huge diversity. But some of the rarest species we've had here are black-necked grebe. Those are the more unusual ones we've had. But today we've been really lucky. We've seen half a dozen avocet as we've gone around the site. We haven't seen any giant hares today, but we do get a lot of giant hare in the area. And they appear to have gone back in history because we've seen them in old pottery that's been found during archaeology in the area in the past.
Birds and wildlife are regularly monitored. and boreholes and salinity probes are collecting a wealth of new data. The team says that early discussions with the local planning authority and Natural England helped them to achieve this impressive restoration. From the southeast of England, we head back over to the southwest of England and visit the Emerys Minerals Meath Quarry on the north edge of Dartmoor. Natural regeneration, active conservation and ongoing management are helping to maximise the potential of this 150-hectare site of lakes, moor, wet woodland, reed beds and rocky outcrops. The Devon Wildlife Trust now looks after the quarry, and the Restoration Partnership has created a springboard for biodiversity to spread out into the surrounding countryside. The mixture of habitats attracts a wide variety of birds, while adders and grass snakes slither through the acid grassland. And bats love Meath. Brown long-eared, lesser horseshoe and soprano pipistrelle bats are all flourishing. Local people have embraced this huge new amenity, with volunteers working to preserve habitats and access. Children from rural and inner city schools are enjoying walks and pond dipping and wildlife watching.
The Tarka Trail bisects the site, and it's been a huge bonus to ourselves and to the Wildlife Trust to actually get people into the site. They come in off the trail, may not necessarily know that the reserve is here, so they get the advantages of coming in and getting the benefits of the habitats and the restoration that's here really. And it's proved really popular to get people in from the urban areas, get them into the site, cycling, walking, and just to get the whole experience really and expand their experience of the countryside.
This is a wildlife haven which has brought biodiversity on a big scale to an area dominated by farming. We're staying in Devon for a flying visit to the aggregate industry's Ven Ottery Quarry in the East Devon area of outstanding natural beauty. Here, the team has worked in partnership with the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds and local people. Lowland heathland, meadows, ponds and woods feature in this restoration with a little help from Dartmoor and Exmoor ponies. Ven Ottery is surrounded by the East Devon Pebblebed Heath's SSSI. Lowland Heath declined dramatically in the 20th century and what's left is threatened. The vital work at Ven Ottery extends this fragile habitat, dovetailing with that more, bigger, better and joined up mantra from Lawton.
So by restoring the quarry here, we're aiming to expand and enhance the East Devon Pebblebed Heaths to create better connectivity to the species that are on here. We know there's a long way to go and a lot of work still to do, but as we stand here and hear the birds singing and see the meadow, I think it's looking at what the broad range of things we've done in such a short space of time is something we can really be proud of and look to build on.
Connectivity has driven this project. New hedgerows and woods link up with existing woodland, creating a natural, biodiverse superhighway for bats, nightjar and dormice. It was local people who pressed for broadleaf woods to replace conifers felled for quarrying. Throughout, there's been a big conversation with people living near Ven Ottery. This collaboration has driven the restoration and produced extras like an orchard of local apple varieties and a bat group that helped build a hibernation chamber for greater and lesser horseshoe bats, two of the UK's rarest bat species. The mineral products industry is driving the restoration and preservation of some of Britain's most precious landscapes and habitats. Lawton's challenge was to think big, and our contenders have shown that if we do think bigger and better, great things can happen.